Everybody, and welcome today to a really exciting interview with the fabulous Sue Wesby. Hello, Sue.
Hello.
I have known Sue for a number of years now, and I have just absolutely loved her drive and enthusiasm for property, business, and overall, actually, life. You have just such is it a joie de vivre or something? This kind of real passion for life and living your best life and being, having the life that you choose. And I think that is amazing. And certainly something that I've kind of taken on board and really aspired to. So I was really excited today to get you here and to hear all about your life journey, I suppose, but obviously more importantly your property journey. And I believe I was kind of there seeing you kind of near the beginning of that. So so for those who don't know you, Sue, do you want to just give a brief intro of who you are, where you live, so that people can start to get to know you?
Well, thank you, Emma. That's a lovely introduction. Yes, so I'm Sue. I'm a mum and a grandma as well, a nana. Live in Northamptonshire, and I've had various corporate jobs, I suppose. I was bank for a number of years, pharmaceutical sales. I've had my own business. I own a science business with my husband Wes, which we set up in 2011. But about 2 years ago, I gave up my full-time employed job with pharmaceuticals to go into property full-time. And that's where we first met because you were one of my mentors at the time. And thank you for that, everything you taught me. And I suppose really over the last sort of couple of years, really, it's been a journey, I suppose, sort of looking at a couple of our buy-to-lets, what we could do differently with those to actually improve our return on investment, and then trying, sort of a couple of other strategies as well. So we've got one serviced accommodation, and we're currently in the middle of doing a property that we're flipping as well. So yeah, it's all a big learning curve, but I'm a real believer that you're never too old to change your career direction and strive for the life you want to live. I suppose that's my mantra, I believe.
I love it. I love it. And Sue looks incredible, but she is honestly a grandma. I know it's hard to believe. She's just absolutely gorgeous inside and out. But has, is a mum and a grandma and obviously a wife, etc. A real family lady too. So let's, if we might, go kind of right back. So obviously you've had this corporate career, and then was it kind of what kind of led you towards property? I know you already had a buy to let, didn't you? But what kind of drove you towards property rather than something else?
I mean, I've always really loved property, and my dad's sort of job, I suppose, we moved around a lot when I was a child. So actually that was different experiences. We lived in some fabulous houses and we lived in some not so nice houses, I suppose, because the houses went with his job. But I think it was more that experience and I don't know, sort of seeing what you could do with a property, really. I mean, I think I love nothing more than looking at a property and seeing how that could be improved, whether that's change of layout, decor, just to maximise its benefit. So I've always really enjoyed property and what you can do with it. And I think the idea to perhaps do something that you're passionate about, but you can turn into a business as well, is really good, isn't it? So I think it's just more deciding that actually, why not? Why can't I do that? Other people do it. So there's no reason why I can't have a go at doing that as well.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love the fact that you said a business, because this has been something that has been a huge sort of progression from me. One of the really experienced developers that I interview quite regularly, Paul Merrick, he just talks about the whole thing. It is a business. And I think sometimes people forget that. And in fact, I was talking to some people. Oh, that was it. I was talking to some letting agents the other day. And they, excuse me, and they were just saying that, you know, some landlords forget that they are providing a product.
Yes.
You know, and it has to be a decent product. You can't just bury your head in the sand. So it really is a business. So it's great to hear that you kind of did that. So really, what you know, so obviously I met you through mentoring. So I was a mentor for Touchstone, and that's where we met. What made you kind of take that leap? You'd already bought a buy-to-let. Did you feel that you needed more information? What made you do that jump to go and actually get help with mentoring?
I think, you know, we had a couple of buy-to-lets, and they did okay, and they do okay. But I think it was more the realization that there's so many other paths you can take, and I think there's a lot of people have maybe one or two buy-to-lets, or my experience they do, you know, and they sort of tick along quite nicely as well. But it's more the fact that actually I didn't ever think about doing sort of serviced accommodation with one of those, to actually maximize the income that you can get on that property. But not only maximize the income, you're actually providing a service. So ours, for example, allows pets. You know, that's something that you often can't, you know, you can't do and take into a hotel. Or if you've got a family, maybe go into a wedding or something like that. You know, it's perhaps not ideal, is it, to go into a hotel room with a family, with the dog or whatever. So it's about the fact that not only could it be a more beneficial business for us, it's also providing you know, something where there's a gap in the market. So I think realizing how many different strategies there are, and you will know this as well, when I started out with mentoring as well, there's literally so many strategies you can take, and it's almost sort of, well, I can do this and I can do that, and it takes time, I think, to streamline down, well, which way am I going to go? Otherwise you can get caught up in trying to do all these different sort of ideas of which way you can take things forward. So I you know, I think that's really why I knew that I needed to invest in myself, because you need to invest in the education to know that you're taking the right path, you're setting any property purchase up in the right legal entity, maximizing your income, really, you know, making sure you're tax efficient, and understanding all of the sort of, you know, mistakes that hopefully that I have made mistakes, obviously, but what I'm saying is minimizing those mistakes that perhaps without education I would make more of.
Yeah, I love that when you talk about you know, this kind of, it's basically an overwhelm, isn't it? Like
Yes.
most of us come from the same position. You know, we kind of grew up, you save up for a deposit, you buy a house, you do it again, and that's pretty much it. I mean, you hear about people doing creative things, but you don't really believe it. And then suddenly you do find out about that, and every single one seems attractive. It's like, oh, I could do that, and I could do that, and I could do that. And it's actually really part of the challenge to get over that, not too quickly, because I think it's important to understand all the strategies, but to have that opportunity to understand them, digest them, feel which ones are right for you, and then kind of move forward. But what a lot of people do, don't they, is they jump from this to that to the other, and then we never really move forward. And even I mean, I remember going to an actual like coach, and just said to him, look, I'm trying to create my business plan, but there's, you know, a million different types of properties. There's about 40 different ways that you can purchase it. There's so many different ways that you can actually, you know, buy it as well, different cash fundings. Then there's loads of different ways that you can monetize it. It was just so crackers and so overwhelming. So it's trying to sort of bring it down. So I can completely understand that. So when you started out, then obviously you had your two buy-to-lets, and then you had all these different sort of options that you started to learn from. So what made you, I know your first one, and I know you came to me because, and obviously in those days, I was the serviced accommodation rents or serviced accommodation table. So you came and joined me a number of times. What was it in the end that kind of drew you to serviced accommodation?
Well, I think we had a buy-to-let that was coming free from tenants. They were leaving anyway. We needed to spend money on it. It needed refurbishing, decorating, etc. Anyway, and a proper refurb. So I did say to my husband, well, whatever we do with this, we need to do it up really. So even if we're going to sell it, to me, we're going to get more money if we get it completely redecorated and refurbed. And when we looked at the return that we could get on a traditional buy-to-let, it was going to be okay. It would cover our costs, but it wouldn't particularly make us much money. So through someone else that obviously I met on your table, Mark Johnson as well, who actually is an agent for service accommodation, who happens to live locally as well, I asked him to do some research for me in our local area just to see what the returns would be if we did it as service accommodation. And he actually sort of, when we looked at the figures and the potential, he thought it was a good property for that type of potential. And just thought, well, we'll take a leap of faith, really. Guided obviously by your experience as well, and of Mark's. He sort of basically sent me a list and said, do all these things, buy all these things, and set it up in this way. And I had the help of a stager as well, Eloise Bright from Eloise Estates, and basically sort of just took a leap of faith. And you know what? It's done really well. So I think you have to assess the risk, but sometimes you have got to take a leap of faith as well. Otherwise, we'll never do anything, will we? We'll never do anything differently. And I think we took the view that, this is a scenario. If it doesn't work, okay, we've refurbed the house, we've bought the furniture for the staging, but that's the worst case scenario. We needed refurbing anyway. So, these are our other options if this method doesn't work. Sell it or go back to traditional buy-to-let. So I think we had a backup as well.
I think this is one of the things that what really made you shine in the tables that I had. Obviously, everyone was lovely, but you spoke there about two other people, and that's why I love sort of helping people and seeing and loving this kind of more mastermind, more sort of personalized view, is because you met all those people basically on my table.
Absolutely.
And
both of them are on your table. Yeah.
It's so lovely to be able to look back and see strangers that are now, well, especially Mark has created the most incredible business. Eloise is doing the thing that she really, really loves. You're growing a business. And I know on top of that, there's so many, I could list loads and loads of, mutual people that have now become, what I consider to be really, good friends that I could call up. And I know that they would drop everything, to answer a question or to do those things. And that is where you have really embraced that to the full. I mean, when I look at how you have, you've utilized, and I don't mean that to sound in any way negative, but in an incredibly positive way, you've seen the skills of other people, known that you can't necessarily do it all yourself, which of course you can't. That's why you need your team. And you've literally said, look, can you help me? I would really like to do that. So how's it been with that network? Because for me, I've just seen you and networks, and you just do an incredible job of helping others as well.
But I think isn't that the way to run a business though? Look at the people who can do things better than you and get them to help you do it. I mean, that's the way I think we should all work. We all have our own set of skills, don't we? And there's always other people who are better at things than you. So that doesn't faze me in the slightest. I'm quite happy that you can work with them and they can do what they're good at, and you can perhaps provide opportunities for them or introduce those people to someone else. Networking is really key. And I've really tried, I would say that probably the last 4 to 5 months, I've really stepped up on my networking and trying to embrace that and create a personal brand and build that up really, so you can build up your own credibility. I think that's so important as well. You mentioned earlier about landlords being yes, we're running a business, but it's about providing a service. But to me, it's about having your own ethics, I suppose, and your own high standards. And anything that I want to be involved with, I want it to be the best it can be, and the best product it can be, the best stay for someone it can be, because that's really important, isn't it, to be credible? To be credible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've got Laura, our lovely mutual friend Laura, who's just who said 2 beautiful ladies. We'll take that, Laura. We'll take that, definitely. That's very, very kind of you. So yeah, so you made that decision, and obviously you got Mark. And I ask you as well, because I've written a book about the gold mine area.
Yes.
How important was it for you to really know? Because a lot of people, and this is something that frightens the heebie-jeebies out of me, is people say things like, "Oh, I've got a buy-to-let. I think I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to give service accommodation a go," and that terrifies me. How did you? I know you were. You've already spoken about it needed a refurb and things like that. But were you pretty sure that it was going to work before you actually jumped in?
Yes, because I mean, obviously, you coached me a lot on your gold mine area, and to me, location is everything anyway. You've got to know your area, you've got to know the market, you've got to know what your returns are going to be on whatever you choose to do with that, or as far as you can by doing, your own research. So knowing your gold mine area is key. I mean, I always think you can't move where a property is, can you? I mean, you can do all sorts of things with it, subject to planning or whatever, but you can't change where that property is. So I've chosen to invest locally to me. It might not be the cheapest area, but I know the area. I know the best areas. I know the schools. I know the roads that people want to live in. I know the rental income people are going to get. Within reason, I know what sort of prices you're going to get. So to me, that is really, really important. And if people want to invest in their gold mine area, which is outside of their locality, that's fine as well. But they really, I don't know, short of going to stay there or spend time up there or spend a lot of time speaking to agents and knowing the area, that for me personally was too much of a risk. I wanted to be within traveling distance of properties that I'm investing in, and I wanted to be sure I knew what my returns were going to be and have backup plans. It's all very well saying it's going to be serviced accommodation, but what if the market falls out of that? What is the backup plan for that property then? Because you can't afford to have it sat there, not when there's a mortgage on it. You can't anyway have it sat there earning you nothing, can you?
Exactly.
Because we've got a business. It's a business to run. Yeah. So the gold mine area and all of the tips and the strategy that you went through when we were working together were absolutely key to me.
Yeah, I'm so pleased for that. And I absolutely love hearing that people want to invest locally and do invest locally. I'm not saying that there aren't people who aren't successful, but I certainly see that those who are starting out, and not necessarily starting out with, £1 million budgets just to go off shopping, that's a totally different strategy. These are people who genuinely want to recycle their cash, who want to maximize the properties that they already have. And generally, that is looking at what exactly as you said. And it is so incredibly important. And I'm in fairness, I've just moved back to an area that I grew up in. And I'm actually really loving going and visiting those places and going down back lanes that I would have never been before, but I still know where I am. I still know where they're good. And you say to the agent, where exactly is it? And it's like, oh yeah, that's the street that is really up and coming. That one down there isn't as good. And you get to know exactly as you say, and you get to speak to people, even on the school gates, all of these things. It's just really key. So yeah, totally important for me. So I know that we mutually met these people that became your power team, I suppose. But was there a point where you thought, oh, I might manage the service accommodation myself? I know you chose Mark, who is, he has created a really incredible, very efficient machine of a management company. What made you make that choice?
The honest answer is no, I've not once considered doing it myself. And that because to me, you need to work on your business, not in your business. I would be trying to do something that I don't have the skills and experience to do. You know, he does all the pricing structure. He organizes all the cleaning. You know, he basically sent me a list and said, you know, we need cameras, we need this amount of crockery, we need these types of beds, he sent me a list and I just ordered from the list. You know, he spent years building up and creating what works to do with the booking systems, what works for the guests, you know, all of the guest book, the check-in procedures. I don't see the point of me trying to do something that someone else has spent years honing in on their skills to get the maximum return. Yes, of course, he's taking a percentage for his work, and so he should. So it's in his interest to get the bookings full and the best price, isn't it? But ultimately, he's the one with a superhost status. He's the one with a pricing structure. He's the one who knows how to handle guests. He's the one who can get direct bookings. And I would just be trying to do something that's not my area of expertise. So not once have I ever thought I'd like to do that myself.
I love it. Love it.
And that's the truth. So
do you think you got that because you do have a sort of a background in business? Obviously, you help your husband with your sign business. Do you think that kind of helped you beforehand, or was it the community within, you know, property that you've come into? Because I know for me, that was quite a big shock. It was all about don't leave one job just to create another job. It was, and I've massively embraced it. Love automation, love all of those kind of things. What was it, do you think, that gave you that edge?
I suppose years ago I had a business in commercial vehicle trucks, of which I knew nothing about, and it became very clear early on that I was never going to know. I knew a top line enough as an overview, but I didn't know the details. But there were plenty of people surrounding me who did know the details. So it's far better, in my view, to utilize people and their expertise, and you be the person who perhaps pulls all of that together, than trying to learn an industry that someone's spent 20 years learning. You know, you can't know everything, can you? So utilize the people around you to do what they're all best at, and you be the person to pull that together and then be driving forward, looking for your next stage of the business. And know your power team. You trust them then to do their part and bring all that together.
Yeah. And also it's lovely. So I'd love to get a bit of feedback on Eloise as well with the sort of interior design. What I find then is once you're utilizing these people, what you create is almost better than your vision could have ever been, because you only know to a certain level, don't you? And actually these people then sort of elevate. You know, I remember with the hotel, it was really interesting. Our CGIs, we came back and looked at our CGIs and compared them, and they were so similar. But the final product was just so much better than we could have ever kind of imagined. It's just so beautiful and exciting. And I think those bits, when you get that added extra, I love that. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about getting, you know, the interior designer. How did that help you with that final product?
What, with the serviced accommodation? Because it's actually helping me with my flip as well. Amazing. So the serviced accommodation, I think although it was aimed at, well, we discussed what we were going to do, but we were aiming for sort of mid-market, if you can say that. So it's not, where I live is not a holiday destination. So it wasn't that market that we're going for. And it also, we didn't want it basic. So we wanted it nice for contractors, but also families and things as well. So we decided on budget, we decided on ideas and colour scheme. But ultimately then she had quite a free rein, really. She came back with mood boards and ideas and things as well, and so some things we discussed and agreed, but she had quite a free rein as well. But Eloise has worked on a number of serviced accommodation projects. She's actually working with me now on the project that we are going to flip, and she's not done properties before to flip. So we're working together because that's going to help her business. This is the first time it's been a project that's staged to sell. And that's something that I really wanted to really want to break the ceiling price in the road, get the maximum price for the project and sold quickly. They're the sort of two key aims. Wanted to be a bit different. You know, I know a lot of people do refurbs and then you've got a lovely, you know, new empty house, but some people don't have that vision when they walk in to think, well, it could be furnished like this, or it could be set out in a certain way, or that's how much room we've got for beds. So that was really important with the flip project, that it's going to be staged for sale.
Yeah. And when you talk about that, this is another thing that has really shone out for me with yourself is when I have gone through, gosh, so much self-understanding, and especially when I've had help from, you know, the Bob Proctor sort of group of people. One of the big things that comes out is that the more people you help, then the more you're going to receive. And that's one thing I've seen with you, you know, with Mark, you know, you were always promoting him. Obviously, he did a great job for you, but you went out of your way and like talking to Eloise and also, you know, seeing that she does a great job here. Would you be interested in maybe spreading your wings to do this as well? And I think that's just such a lovely ethos to have in life. And it's certainly, I see, then it brings people together, and then it will be great, in fact, in a moment. But yeah, to talk about that networking that you've done as well. But I think this whole emphasis of not just thinking of yourself, but thinking of others in the process is so incredibly powerful. Has that been something that has just always been part of the way you are, the way you network, or has that been a you know, something that you've kind of worked on and you've seen you love helping?
Yeah, I think we should always promote other people if we've had good service from them and elevate their business as well. And you're right, it's not done to get business back. Well, obviously you'd like business back, but that's not the main reason for doing it. I think if you've had a good service and work that's been done well, then that's great, you can promote them. And then if they're happy with what you've done, then they will sort of, business comes back to you. But it's not, I've not done it specifically for that. I think people who, you know, provide a good service, what's wrong with recommending them? I think that's really credible, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's a huge part of what I do. I mean, I'm part of the BNI and lots of other things, and I just love recommending people. It's just such a wonderful thing. Now, is everyone perfect? No, of course not. But I actually gave somebody an introduction to a tradesperson the other day, and I think that job could literally change their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and you just think, wow, that is so amazing. Just you know, I didn't know it was going to be a huge job. I said, oh yeah, this person's great, and then suddenly it could be life changing. And I think those kind of kind of things are pretty cool. Okay, so you came in, you had all these kind of different strategies that you're thinking about. You had your buy to let, you sent it over to serviced accommodation. So yeah, a bit of an update. How did it go? Is it still serviced accommodation? And then where did you go from there?
Yes, so it is still serviced accommodation at the minute. We're always looking at the best way moving forward. So one of the ideas we've got with the serviced accommodation is, do we continue with that as a service accommodation unit, which is doing well, or do we look to utilise selling it and getting the equity out of the property and buying, say, 2 more properties? Because I think the property that we've bought at the minute, you know, yes, you can borrow funds, and yes, you can get bridging finance, and yes, you can raise private investment. But, you know, sometimes it's whether or not it's more useful to utilise getting more cash out of the assets you've got. So we're always looking at the way forward with that as well, to utilise the assets we've already got to raise more money on that, to be able to progress more quickly, I suppose. So yes, so the plan is the flip property needs to go on the market within the next month. So that'll go up for sale. And then obviously it's finding the next property, really, finding the next deals.
So what made you choose to do a flip? I'm always sort of really interested in this kind of thing. And how did you choose what? I mean, obviously, again, going back to there being so many options, obviously, you know, you could buy a, you know, 1 bed, convert it into a 2 bed, flip that. You could buy a mansion, convert it into a hotel and flip that. You can, you know, there's just so many. What kind of, did you really kind of hone down? I know you talked about the area, but the property type as well. Did you look at, so I talk about fishing in a pond where no one else is fishing. And quite often, you know, there's certain properties that everyone wants to buy. So it might be first time buyers or homeowners plus investors. And, you know, it's whether that product at the end. So again, I've got a developer who's made these fantastic 5-bed houses, but in that particular area right now, they're not selling. You know, so that's cool. You know, they were before when he started, it seemed like a great market. So how have you sort of gone about choosing this property?
Well, the idea of a flip was, again, to try and generate some more cash. So in the longer term, I think what I'd rather do is buy them, refurbish them, put a mortgage on, and pull as much of the money back out and still retain the property. But the idea of this one was trying to get some cash, you know, sell it on, because then you can get some cash out of the money that you've made. So I think when choosing the property, the location of the property is really nice. It's a probate property. The location's nice. It just needed completely refurbishing, to be honest. And I suppose really at the back of my mind was always, what's the backup if we can't sell it and get what we want for it? It still would be great for service accommodation. It still would be great as a buy to let. Now, in my mind, it was having the other strategies on the first one to know that I had a backup if the first one didn't quite get what we wanted. And then I suppose the second thing really is, I mean, to be totally honest, anything is a deal if you can buy it at the right price, isn't it? Let's be honest. So with this particular property, we managed to negotiate down twice the price. And that was really, it wasn't meant to be difficult to the vendors. It was more just being honest with the agent and saying, look, this is what we're going to do with it. We're running the numbers. The market sort of dropped a bit last year, at the end of last year, after we put our first offer in. It was more, we've run the numbers and we can't make this work. So we are going to have to drop we're going to have to drop our offer. But we completely understand if the vendors want to go elsewhere, we accept they have to do what's best for them, but this is where we are and this is the price we can pay. And they still went with us. So that was their choice at the end of the day. I suppose it was no chain as well. So I think getting at the right price, making sure you've got your budget and your contingency correct, and knowing what your end value is. But breaking the ceiling, I mean, the idea is to break the ceiling price on that road.
Do you want to just explain if somebody doesn't understand what that means? Do you want to explain what that means?
Yes. So ceiling price really is sort of, you know, when I look at prices for a property I'm buying, I'm looking at the prices they've previously sold for. So that doesn't necessarily mean they've been marketing that price. It's looking at the actual sold prices. And breaking the ceiling price means I want to get a higher price, sell it for a higher price than any other property on that same property type on that road has achieved before. And
that's really great for varying reasons, is that you can actually raise the value of properties, and then it may be that you go and buy a very similar property and there's already, you know, so when valuation officers go around, they can already see that this is the level of those properties, and so that where it should be. I know quite a few sort of really successful developers as well who do exactly that. They go into an area, they create an incredible product, it may be HMO or whatever, and they sell it so that they have that really high ceiling price, and then that enables them to go out and buy many more and know that they've got an extremely good chance of hitting those higher levels. Whereas, you know, you hear so many, don't you, of people getting these down valuations and that causing some major issues. So it's a really great thing. So just to try and get this into perspective in the journey that you're going, what is your long-term goal for property?
To have a passive income. We have a signage business, but that involves manufacturing involves being there and doing the actual physical work. So ways to do more work or more staff or find, it's very much more hands-on. It can't be as passive. So the idea would be more that we have a portfolio so that we've got more passive income, and that gives us choices then going into retirement. And it's about choices. It doesn't mean that we will not work, because both my husband and I, we really enjoy work, and I can't see us ever not working. But it's about having those choices to travel, or choices to, do different things with our time, I suppose. It's about doing that. But I also think would be nice to have some sort of legacy, and I don't know if that provides inspiration to other people. I'd like to say other older women, but I do genuinely mean that. There's not actually ever a reason why at any stage of your life you can't think you can actually have a career change or go and do something different. So if that provides inspiration to people, then good. That's a good thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So it would seem that, so this kind of flip is to enable you to grow a bigger pot, to enable you to go off and purchase more properties, and you'll have a certain level where you'll have that return that you want, to give you the choice whether to, sell your sign business or whatever, and sort of keep it going like that. Is that the plan?
Yeah. And I think it's been very much that we've had sort of an open day. We'll do another one when it's completed, generating interest as well. There are people who like the idea of being involved but don't want to do it themselves. There's sort of always that opportunity if people want to be private investors, even if it's people who think, oh, I'd like to have a go at that. They can, I'm not saying we've done everything correctly, but they can sort of have a look in the way that we've done it, or learn from that as well. We've bought it in a limited company. A lot of people don't realise that's an option. So it's sort of, isn't it? It's a good giving payback, really, and sharing your experience. And I learn from other people. I'm always learning from other people in things that they've done, where they shared ideas as well.
Amazing. And I think that's a really key one. And obviously sort of doing things like this, but with the banks as they are not as friendly, let's be fair, to borrow from. They can be quite challenging. Obviously, that you absolutely need banks, and especially when you want that kind of long-term lending, that they really are fantastic. But when you want sort of, especially if it's kind of short-term lending, any kind of bridging, there can be varying hoops, obviously extremely expensive. And if you can work with a private investor, it can be a real win-win. But exactly as you said, you do actually have to let them know. So quite often, and I'm terrible with this, like people just genuinely presume that you've got all the money that you need, but you always have money tied up in varying projects, and you're always going to have, not necessarily the right money in the right place at the right time. And it is a great opportunity to work with investors. So I love the fact that you've done these open days, not only to showcase what you can do, but help other people, because if you've got loads of cash in the bank, it's just going backwards, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's great. And this kind of leads on really nicely. One of the things that I've really liked about you is you've really embraced this kind of, and I've attempted it as well, is building up this brand, getting this awareness. So, and this was kind of very much this year. So what made you make that kind of shift to be much more strategic on that side of things?
Well, I've been working the last 12 months with Sarah Poynton Ryan from Cogito Wealth, and she has various speakers come in as well as part of that community. But one of the speakers was Joe Taylor from eGrowth Media, and he was talking very much about social media and whether people love it or hate it. It's there now, it's in the world, isn't it? And how you can elevate yourself to a much wider audience. And I just think it's really important to showcase what you're doing to build that personal brand. And that's partly for credibility. It's not even about asking people for things. It's just consistent evidence of what you're doing. And there's often people watching in the background, or they might feel they get to know you, but they're just learning what you're doing or seeing what you're doing and taking an interest in what you're doing. And I think it's just about building that credibility and building, that people can see what you're doing, and just elevating your business, I suppose. So I've really worked hard on that probably the last 3 or 4 months with networking and social media. I do have someone doing my social media. It's not me doing it. As I say, eGrowth are doing it for me. But again, that's going back to giving that work to someone who's knowledgeable and experienced, and they know what they're doing, as opposed to me spending hours trying to do something when I don't know what I'm doing. So
totally. That was a bit like both of us trying to sign in at various times, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Oh, how do we do that? That's not my remit.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think, and this is why I love having these kind of interviews of people who, are sort of still relatively at the beginning of their property journey, because we spoke about this before. Some of the, the big people that lead these, these big property education companies, I mean, they're amazing and they're really inspirational. And I think that's great. But sometimes they're just too far ahead.
Yeah.
And you want somebody who literally, you could sort of almost feel they're just a number of steps away. And those are the ones that can give you equally incredible inspiration. And I always say to people, and I know I would have said it to you as well, not telling people what you're doing, can be selfish, actually, because, if you can inspire just one person by what you're doing, why wouldn't you share it? Why wouldn't you let other people know? And I think it's a shame sometimes, because we kind of, it's almost like, the tall poppy syndrome, where that people try and knock you down and we feel like we can't tell people what we want to do. But I think actually when you see it, it makes such a big difference. And I've been seeing you grow and grow and grow. And of course, it's brought you front of mind. And it's kind of like, I really love that. I genuinely like it when people, think, and it is scary. I remember when I started doing my first kind of videos and just thinking, oh my gosh. And my kids would say, Mum, you said 1,000 times in that 1 minute, and all of those things. But I think what you're doing is great, because it will help people. And actually, when you start looking, when you put yourself out there a little bit more, the number of people that you do touch the lives of really grows. And that's something very, very special. And it's such a shame when people are too shy or worried, not doing it. So yeah, how's it helped you having, so was it Joe Taylor helping you with eGrowth? Are they really kind of guiding you?
Oh, they're fantastic. I mean, and they sort of, we have a meeting every week, and they, we decide what the content's going to be, and I know what I have to do and upload and all the rest of it as well. And so, yes, it's a real partnership, and that's really helped in sort of, I suppose, getting my name out there. But, just touching back on something that you just said now is if I want sort of the younger generation to believe they can. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I can't do that, I haven't got any money, and they really can. I'm not saying you can do, I don't think it's as easy as sometimes said, you can do everything with no money. I don't mean it like that. But what I mean is they can do it. And I think the education system nowadays, certainly when I was at school, no one ever talked about being entrepreneurial. No one ever talked about having your own business. And I come from a family where everyone's always been employed. Nobody had ever had their own business or started their own business. And why can't people, why can't anybody? It's just having that knowledge and belief that, yes, you can. There are other choices out there. It's not just about sitting exams, and there's nothing wrong with that, going down a route where you're employed. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But about having the options and the choice and the belief and the drive that everybody with the right education and support can strive for a different type of life. I do genuinely believe that. And that's one of the things I'm really quite passionate about with our own children, really, and grandchildren, is, them seeing that you know, even at my age, I'm sort of doing something new and striving for something different, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can go off all at any age, all of those kind of things. And like, so even just in my family, you know, my youngest daughter, this last week we'd realized that we're probably being a bit generous with her, because she was so long awaited. She is a little bit spoiled, obviously the youngest as well, and she was talking about pocket money. And it was kind of like, well, you know, your brothers, they both started businesses at 5 years old.
Yeah.
Because I was so sick and tired of going into the supermarket and being pestered to buy loads of plastic rubbish, you know, and it just got quite overwhelming and I didn't really know what to say to them. And so they started their businesses. They did really well. She's now started, you know, we just looked up what a kid could do, and she's now started doing finger knitting. And she started, you know, seeing if, you know, guess what? We're all her first clients. But it's starting, exactly, it's starting to think through it. And then really interesting, I was chatting to another chap who runs an incredible foundation, in fact, Caldecott Foundation. It's for kids who haven't had perhaps the best start in life, and they have special schools and homes and things. And he was saying that one of his kids just said right from an early age, I'm just never going to go in and have a normal job. I'm going to work from a beach somewhere. And guess what he's doing?
Yeah, good for him.
Working from a beach somewhere. And that is what I love, is knowing that, you know, you've got to go out there and find something that you want to do. You don't have to go into that doldrum of just work. You know, there are ways of working and doing something really creative that you'll love.
Yeah, and just having the belief in that. And that's where I think the education system, it just doesn't give that drive. I don't believe so anyway. I think it doesn't tell people there are choices, and there are choices. And you know, we all want to give our children more than we have. All of us do that. But what we have to be careful is not doing that too much, so that they don't have that drive themselves to aspire to a better life, to aspire to a different life, and have the choice. And if they want to work for someone else, and that's absolutely fine as well. It's not wrong. It's just about knowing they have choices. That's what I think is important. It's about choices, isn't it?
Yeah. And the biggest thing that I found with my older children, I've got two 18-year-olds, is that, you know, when you're 17, 18, and especially post the bloody COVID nightmare, you know, going down the pub seemed really exciting. And we can all remember that, can't we? We start to drive and we go to the local pub and we're having an amazing time. And I just kept saying to them, you know, there's a lot more out there. There's a lot more fun that you can have. There's a lot of amazing things. And one of my boys has just been off for 2.5 months and been to, I think, 5 countries, earned lots of money along the way, completely opened their eyes to new experiences. And that's what I really want, is for people to understand that there's more.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, you know, when we're in our little world, and some people love being in their little world, and that's also perfectly fine. But if you know that there's more out there and you want to see it, I think everyone should know, exactly as you said, that you can, if you want to, go and get it. Don't feel like you have to sort of hold back. So yeah, interesting. Anyway, I'm aware of time and I've got a few more questions I really want to touch on. You decided, so there's lots of networking events. So this is kind of like following on from you raising your profile. You know, you've taken on somebody to help you with your social media, which is a really great thing to do, I personally believe. And then I hear, and I saw you kind of advertising, doing a networking event. But what I found really interesting is it wasn't just any old networking event. It was really quite different. Would you mind sort of telling us how you decided, why you decided to do it, how you came about, and why it was quite a little bit different?
Well, the credit for this does have to go to Sarah from Cogito Wealth, who's doing my mentoring. But she suggested I did a mentoring event around estate agents. She said there's nothing really around for estate agents to network. She said they're a little bit nervous of probably mixing with each other, because obviously it's a very competitive market and they're all, you know, fishing in the same pool. But she suggested I did that on the basis that what we need to try and do is try and find a way that there are difficult properties to sell. There are agents who are trying to sell them, and then there are people like me who are trying to buy them. And there's other creative ways we can all get to a resolution with all parties involved. So she suggested that I did some sort of networking event on that basis. And then, so I did sort of with the local agents. Again, as we suspected, there was some nervousness about, well, what was I getting out of it for a start? What would they get out of it? So the idea was, I had a speaker come in who was Sarah herself, and she was talking about creative ways you can get a sale on a property. And the agents could come to the event. They weren't going to be sharing trade secrets. They were, they could all take something from it and go home with that sort of different way of thinking. I did have some trades go along as well, electrician, plumbers and things as well. So service accommodation agents and investors. So the idea was to get a mix of people within a room and just talking to each other, really, and about different ways you can get more complicated properties sold. So let's say, for example, a property where it's unmortgageable. You're automatically cutting out a huge chunk of people unless there's cash buyers there. But you've got someone who desperately needs to sell. Maybe they've got debt they need to pay off. The agent wants to make a sale for them, and then you've got investors there as well. So it could be different types of sort of sales. It could be purchase lease option, which, if you've got any of the people listening now don't know what that is, essentially is taking control of the property without buying it, doing work on it and buying it in the future. Assisted sale, which is essentially taking control of a property, doing the work, ready for sale, selling it, and then you take your portion back and the owner still takes it. All of these different types of ideas, but making sure the agent knew that certainly I wouldn't be trying to cut the agent out. I think some of them were nervous that as an investor, you'd be trying to cut them out and go straight to the person trying to sell. And I was trying to say, no, I don't want to cut you out. I want to work with you. So everyone in that scenario is benefiting. We're all benefiting and getting the end result that we all want. And that was really well received, actually. I had agents come along, had investors come along, and it was a really, really good feedback. So I'll do another one of those as well, and try and build up the idea that it's about all of us in the industry finding a way to help each other get an end solution to a problem, I suppose.
I think it's really powerful. I mean, that's one of the things I find frustrating, and whereas I just kind of like get annoyed about it, you've actually gone out there and done something about it. But for me, the industry of estate agency is incredibly lazy. I think they're not keeping up with the times. As you've mentioned, there are so many other ways, and actually for a person bringing their property, whatever it is, to an estate agent, a straightforward sale is not necessarily the best thing for them, especially like portfolio landlords. You've mentioned unmortgageable properties, various other things. And I think it frustrates me that, they have this kind of, half of them don't even know. They have no idea that these are even about there, and it's their industry. Do you know what I mean? You should know about property and all of those things. And what I found with the agent that I did my purchase lease option through, he's since then, he'd never done one before. He had heard of it just because somebody had suggested it on a different property, but they never really explained it particularly well. So he was a bit like, oh, I don't really want to do that. But he actually really helped and supported us with our purchase lease option. And he's done 3 more since then. So that's completely changed. And he loves it, because clearly the main advantage to agents is that they get paid really quickly.
Exactly.
You don't have to wait 6 months, 9 months sometimes to get paid. They generally get paid really quickly. And so, I just think that is a really forward thinking. Have you found it was more kind of a whole industry, it was kind of for you helping them, or have they do they really turn to you now as a bit more of an expert? Are you seen differently, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's some of the agents that came, that's built up a really good relationship with them anyway. So they'll phone me and say, oh, I've got this property coming up. Do you want to come and look? They're not giving me preferential treatment. They just know that I will be more, think about it in a creative way and building up the trust, because they needed reassurance. And some of them had been, they'd had bad experiences, as there is in any industry, or people or investors have perhaps found a property and then bypass them and cut them out. And, if they've had a bad experience, I understand that. But we've built up a relationship, so they know that isn't my intention. It's not about cutting them out. In a way, I need them. They're going to be coming across these properties probably more easily than I am with all of I'll do my own research, but they're the ones that are getting these properties coming to them. And I want them to know more about it so they can, in their own way, explain to someone who's come to them with their property, we could look at this, or we could look at this, or, I know somebody who would look at it in a different way and perhaps solve your problem really quickly for you. You need to sell it or do something with it in 4 to 6 weeks. I know a way we could do it like that. So that's really been good. It's built up really good relationships in that way. So yes, same with the open day I did. I invited agents to come to that. I invited the agent who actually sold the property that we bought, and he said, I love this because normally I don't see that property again. I sell it in the condition that it's in, and then that's it. So he's come and seen the progress. And obviously, I know he'd like to have that property at the end to onward sell. But if that creates a little bit of competition with them all wanted, that's all the way it is, isn't it, as well? That's business.
Exactly. I love that. Well, look, we're drawing to a close. Before we let everyone know where they can find you, I'm massive on mindset. I absolutely love it. It's been such a huge change. So as we know, as much as you can have help and support, there are still going to be things that will go wrong. You're still going to have up days and down days. You're going to be kind of, feeling, am I doing the right thing? How do you keep going? What is it that kind of drives you on a daily basis to, be different? Because you're stepping. I know you talk a lot about some of your friends and they're all kind of like winding down, and it's almost like you're winding up.
Yeah, they're doing the traditional route of, and that there's nothing wrong with that. They're doing the traditional route of sort of, moving towards retirement and in a different way. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sorry, what did you ask me again?
I said, what keeps you going? What keeps me going? Helps you with your mindset?
I just think we only have one life, and none of us know how long that is going to be, do we? So I want to have a go. I want to at least think one day, well, I had a go at it, didn't I? And I tried to do that, and I tried to deliver the sort of the dreams, I suppose, that I would have for the future. Because if we don't try, well, we don't try, do we? It's sort of, don't ever have any regrets. It's better to try something and it doesn't work than not ever try it. But then also people like yourselves. I mean, I've met some amazing people along the journey, some fantastic people. And everybody, I think, when you're having perhaps a bit of a down day, we're all there to boost each other, aren't we? And encourage each other and support each other. And, that's great as well, isn't it? It's... you just got to keep going. You just got to keep plodding on and not give up.
You know what? I had an accountability. There's a few of us, and we're sort of all done pretty well in property. And I remember sort of saying something, and she just said, "That's it. You just keep going."
Yeah,
so true. Keep going. Like, one step in front of the other, you just got to keep going. Absolutely. Well, Sue, you are so fantastic. I know we could have gone on for hours. There's still lots of stuff that we haven't particularly touched on in more detail, but where can people find you? Whereabouts is your property? Because I think you said you're having another open day, are you?
Yes, so it's in Kettering in Northamptonshire. I haven't set the date for that, but it will probably be in the next 4 weeks. So my Instagram is Sue Wesby Property. And then I've done it more under my business name is Sandacre Property, but I'm pushing more my personal brand really. So LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram are under my name. So Sue Wesby or Sue Wesby Property. So yes, you can find me there. And honestly, if anybody wants to get in touch or they want to come and have a look or just a chat, then please do. You know, people have been so helpful to me on my journey and given me their time and help. Then it's all about giving back, isn't it? I think.
I love it. Well, you are a superstar, and thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your journey. I knew you would be really inspirational, and that's what I love for people. I love people to see, you know, what are the options, because sometimes we don't know what we could do, and it's only by seeing other people's journeys and what they're up to enables us to take that to go forward.
If I can do it, anyone can do it. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I don't know.
So, yeah.
Very modest, very modest. Brilliant, guys. Okay, so we're back again next week. So don't forget 12 noon on Monday. And yeah, cannot wait. And again, thank you so much. So please do go and find Sue Wesby on all of social media as she is now. And if you are local, or even if you're not local, you might want to go and visit her at her current flip, because I know it's doing really well. Okay, Sue, thank you so much. You take care.
Thank you.